So ladies and gents, we finally have the Season 2 trailers and the update notes on the table. And on the trailer side, we don't have one, we have two. The first one is the cinematic trailer for Season 2, and the second one is the gameplay trailer. I'm going to share my thoughts on both, but I'll start with the gameplay trailer since it was published more recently, and I'll try to squeeze every bit of information I can out of it. After that, I'll have a few words about the cinematic one as well. But before we begin, I have to remind you to like and subscribe in the name of the algorithm gods. Let's start with the gameplay trailer. First of all, I have to give credit where it's due. As someone who has been working professionally in video editing for 15 years, I can confidently say EA is doing an awesome job with these trailers. Seriously, that fella deserves a raise. Now, according to the roadmap released alongside the trailer, Season 2 will roll out in 3 phases. Phase 1 begins on February 17th, Phase 2 on March 17th, and Phase 3 on April 14th. So this won't be a single content drop. The first real surprise for me was the second map, Hagenthal Base, because we were expecting only one map this season. There were some leaks floating around, but seeing it officially in the trailer is a different thing. As people guessed, and as clarified in the roadmap notes, Hagenthal Base will be an underground close-quarters combat map, something like a spiritual successor to Battlefield 3's Operation Metro. At this point, I genuinely don't know if we need another close-quarters map, since almost every current map already feels compressed and infantry-heavy. However, we didn't really have a proper infantry-only conquest experience, so this will at least fill that gap. That being said, I truly hope this will be the last major push toward infantry-focused design, and that future seasons shift their focus back toward vehicles and proper combined warfare. That's where Battlefield shines. Infantry-focused or not, I'm still glad we're getting 2 maps instead of 1. But according to the roadmap, Contaminated will be available on February 17th with the launch of Season 2, while Hagenthal Base arrives later on March 17th in Phase 2. Now moving on. The first thing that stands out in the trailer is the bombs dropping at the very beginning. These are most likely the VL-7 hallucination bombs, the source of the gas on the Contaminated map. But as you can see, they don't just release gas, they also create a visible explosion. I'm still not entirely sure how this mechanic will function. Will these be random airstrikes triggered by the server, or will they be player-controlled? At first, I thought there might be a button mechanic similar to the Firestorm map, but judging from what we see in the trailer, it might be something different. We'll have to wait and see. Also, it seems like the gas mechanic could be a limited time event rather than a permanent feature of Contaminated. That actually surprised me, because based on previous information, I thought it would be part of the map's core design. But honestly, I'm glad if that's the case. After a few matches, constant gas zones could easily become frustrating, and I'd probably prefer a clean version of the map in the long run. Then we see the long-missed little bird. I'll be honest, I have doubts. The recent nerf to jet cannons against air vehicles, combined with the little bird's agility and firepower, makes me uneasy. In Battlefield 2042, countering a skilled little bird pilot with a jet was already difficult. Its small hitbox and maneuverability made it hard enough to track with cannons, and on top of that, we had the 40% damage cutoff nerf. Contaminated might not include jets, but I assume the little bird will be available across most all-out warfare maps, and if that's the case, difficult times could be ahead for jet players. We're also getting dirt bikes. This is a good move in terms of expanding traversal options, and it's something I've been repeating non-stop. Big maps do not kill the action if you support them with proper traversal vehicles. If you distribute enough mobility options across the map, the flow remains dynamic without forcing everything into a compressed hotspot chaos. So instead of shrinking maps into constant engagement arenas, just increase mobility. The game instantly starts feeling closer to its core identity. However, once again, according to the roadmap, dirt bikes arrive in Phase 2, not at the launch of Season 2. Now let's talk about map design. Visually and structurally, Contaminated already looks much better than the previous maps. Considering my long-standing criticism about flat terrain and limited elevation, this map appears to introduce far more vertical variation. From what we've seen in the trailer, there are mountains, layered elevations, connecting roads between high and low ground, bunkers leading into tunnel systems, and actual points of interest like massive satellite dishes instead of generic construction zones. That alone is a step forward. However, based on the leaked layout image, it still follows the formula I mentioned in my map analysis video. Let's do a quick reminder. Now let's look at Battlefield 6 maps and how symmetrical they are. You can see this exact formula in every Battlefield 6 map. New Sobek City, Siege of Cairo, great atmosphere but still a Manhattan Bridge clone. Eastwood, Empire State. Square-shaped objective distribution with a centralized circular hotspot. So structurally, the same underlying philosophy is still there. But despite that, there is a visible improvement. Maybe we'll reach the ideal balance eventually, step by step. There are also time-limited modes and events shown in both the trailer and the roadmap. And I have to say, I'm not a big fan of time-limited events in Battlefield. They don't contribute to the core gameplay loop. They just add temporary flavor. Sometimes fun, sometimes not. For example, we're getting night vision goggles for a limited time event called Nightfall, but once the event ends, they're gone. If there were a dynamic day-night cycle in the game that required us to use night vision from time to time, that would be interesting. That would integrate into the core design. Instead, it's temporary. Just like the snow-covered Empire State, visually cool, but no permanent dynamic weather system followed. So for me, that's not very exciting. Besides that, we're getting new weapons. One light machine gun, one assault rifle, and one marksman rifle. Plus, new gadgets like a hardware suppression system for recons that can intercept missiles and destroy electronic gadgets, and the air defense launcher for engineers. And finally, one thing missing from the gameplay trailer, the RedSec solo mode. In a previous community update for Season 2, EA mentioned they were testing a solo mode for RedSec. That was actually the only RedSec-related feature that truly caught my interest, but neither in the roadmap nor in the trailers is there any mention of it, so I guess that one will have to wait.
Time to get that mask on.
As I mentioned at the beginning, we also got a cinematic trailer a few days ago, and I want to talk about something about it. TLDR version of the trailer. Pax Armata captures a strategic airbase in Germany, NATO needs to take it back or they risk losing the war, and that airbase turns out to be the new map, Contaminated. After watching the trailer, a question immediately came to my mind, and I think it's time to say this out loud. There's a strange pattern happening at Battlefield Studios lately. They seem extremely eager to build a full Battlefield universe, with its own lore, narrative arc, and long-term story direction. Do you remember the Exodus short movie for Battlefield 2042? This was a 9-minute-long, high-quality production, which introduces the 2042 universe. The first time I saw it, I genuinely thought, okay, they're cooking something big. This isn't just another multiplayer Battlefield. They're building a universe. It felt like the beginning of something much larger. And then we all saw how that played out. The narrative ambition was there, but the foundation underneath it wasn't strong enough to carry it. Now, I actually appreciate the effort to build a backstory around the gameplay. Giving context to battles can absolutely strengthen immersion, but lore cannot carry the experience on its own. Additional narrative should enhance good design, not compensate for weak design. Yet what we've seen before, especially in 2042, felt like the opposite approach. Massive effort and budget went into narrative framing, while core gameplay systems and map design struggled during the first 2 years of its life cycle. That imbalance hurt the game more than it helped. I genuinely hope Battlefield 6 doesn't repeat that formula. There's another detail that caught my attention. Pax Armata is clearly framed as the bad guy faction. The trailer is told from NATO's perspective, and even the Season 2 notes say the story introduces a new element of tactics in the fight against Pax Armata. Against? That phrasing makes sense in a campaign context, but this is multiplayer. We play both factions. Since we're not getting a campaign expansion, presenting one side as morally framed antagonists creates a tonal conflict. If we could also see Pax Armata's perspective, their justification, their narrative framing, this wouldn't feel one-sided. but in its current form, it clashes with the multiplayer structure. And this opens up a much bigger conversation about faction identity and narrative coherence in Battlefield 6, which deserves its own dedicated breakdown. I'll dive deeper into that in another video. That's pretty much it. Here's an attempt to manipulate you into liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching, see you on the next video, and see you on the battlefield.
Explosive